because you mentioned like pulling out that specific scene. How do you identify those? Because I imagine it's a full book. There's tons of things you could have pulled. Is it a matter of just like pulling the most relatable sort of thing, or I guess even from a practical perspective, how do you sift through everything that's in there, all the things you possibly could share, find the one that's going to be the most emotionally hooking, if you will?
Okay, so I actually have like a very specific step-by-step strategy. Emma probably knows this because you've taken my course. You've seen that I also have like a separate one about how to build these hooks. But the basis of it is I want to pick scenes where my main character is made to feel alone or lonely or rejected in some way. And that might sound like, okay, well, how do you know if someone is going to even be lonely in the book? And it's not about them being dumb or about them being sitting in a room by themselves. It's about the little rejections. It's about the little fears and little insecurities that we can all relate to in some way or another. Because sure, one of the best scenes that I've ever pulled that does really, really well is about I think my first slide, because my first slide always has like an archetype and then like the big conflict of the scene. People don't need to know what the whole book is about, but they do need to know enough to understand what scene they're going into. So the best one I've ever pulled was when your billionaire best friend watches you get dumped on your birthday. Obviously that rejection and like you're in a very low place when somebody is dumping you on your birthday. And then the scene goes on to mention that the guy brought her to a restaurant that he was getting paid to eat at because he's a restaurant reviewer. Like, he was a trash boyfriend. But basically, that's my big hack, is finding scenes where somebody feels lonely or rejected in some way. Because
Hmm.
as humans, we've evolved over tens of thousands of years that if we're alone, we die. And sure, we live in modern society now, but 100,000 years ago, when we lived in caves and didn't have dogs yet, I don't know when dogs came about, around then-ish, maybe. But the
Your dog
basis
will
of it
never
is
reject you, right?
your dog won't reject. I mean, it might.
Yes.
Oh my God, that
I
would
don't
be a
know.
life-ruining scene. Or think about
I
the
don't.
scene in I Am Legend where he has to kill his own dog and he's alone. Like, that's gonna break people. Yeah, that's a horrible scene.
Goodness.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
husband
No.
forgot that
You're.
scene existed. And I was like, you don't remember? He had to kill his own dogs. He's like, the dogs are immune, right? And I was like, no, no, they're not.
Yeah.
But basically,
That's what
like,
made John Wick go crazy, right?
exactly. They killed his
That's the
dog and he was
whole,
alone.
like, inciting incident of
Yeah.
John Wick.
Right.
But yeah, so like hundreds of thousands of years ago, if you were kicked out of the cave, and like, let's look at this from a romance writer's perspective, writing a caveman romance. If this hunk kicked you out of the cave, you had to either find a new hunk with a new cave or get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, or, more likely die of exposure or something, or dysentery.
Yeah.
Because you don't have access to the
Yeah.
cave and the natural spring. So we haven't been in a modern society, in an industrialized society long enough for those instincts to go away. In terms of the amount of time humans have existed, we're like right here on like the size of my whole property, which
Yeah.
is 5 acres. And so scenes where someone is rejected hit viscerally because it's an instinctual fear that we have ingrained from hundreds of thousands of years of surviving as animals, or
Yeah.
as animalistic as possible before we became people with taxes. And that's also why people go so crazy when they get dumped or when they get cheated on or when they get rejected. It's that
Right.
innate fear that we are reacting to emotionally and instinctually rather than intellectually. So, like the scene where the guy's mom died and he can't go to her funeral, he's deep deep down, the core emotion of that scene is that he's lonely, is that
Right.
he's alone, and he doesn't have anyone there for him. Because your mom's going to be there for you. At least
Sure.
she should be. We
She
all
would
know
be.
somebody whose
She
mom
would be.
sucks, but
Mine would be.
exactly. Like, my mom, she would probably die for me, but I know she'd kill a man for me in a heartbeat. Let's keep it family friendly. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
No, hey,
My mom
my
would, no, it's
mom.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm the least family friendly person, they'll tell you. My
Yeah.
mom would bake a pie for, so she wouldn't. She wouldn't.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
baking pies and pulling out the rejection. I have kind of a two-part question. One, what if you're writing warmer, cozier, low angst scenes where you just don't have a lot of that going on? And two, thinking about this from like a freelance editor perspective. Because when I first started trying to get into TikTok, I realized I need to do one more final pass, either before or after I go to market, and start crafting. Because when you're thinking of in terms of hooks and whatever, and I want your thoughts on this, you start realizing, oh, I need to tweak this here. I could tweak this here to make it a really good moment. And so what is your perspective on that? First, the cozy, warm aspect, and then like editing your book so it can be more easily presented when you're doing social media. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest, I haven't read a lot of cozy like mystery, but I've read a lot of cozy romance. And even if the character isn't actively being rejected, there's always gonna be a moment when they wonder how this is gonna go. And that moment of wondering, of even just a little bit of panic, is plenty to use on TikTok, because we can blow up that emotion and really evaluate it under a microscope. And just don't tell us that the guy says, "Of course I love you," right after she says, "Are you into me?" We just don't tell them that in the scene, in the hook, that the guy's like, "Of course I do." We're gonna let people be like, "What does he say though?"
Yeah.
Because I have
Leave them
read,
on the cliff.
yes, I very recently read some novellas and shorter. I wouldn't say they're short stories. They're like novelettes or whatever, like 20,000-ish words
Mhm.
for a client. And so there's not a lot of like back and forth, will they, won't they, because they're short. And so instead of saying, okay, well, here's this scene where this person gets dumped, or here's the third act breakup, I'm just like, here's a scene where they're talking about will they, won't they? Like, they're like, are we going to do this? And I'm just not going to tell the readers on TikTok if they will.
Right.
Because we're not giving them the satisfaction of ending that scene.
They have to
Does that make sense?
actually get the book to get that satisfaction is
Yes.
the idea,
To get that
right?
next
That's the
sentence.
whole point, right?
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
I have one book that went, I think it got like 200,000 views on a slideshow. And the scene was that the girl is insecure because she was doing not so family friendly activities and confessed that she loved the guy. And the scene is not that. It's the day after when she's like, you didn't say it back. And that's fine, but like, I just need to know what's happening in your brain. And basically, like, she's asking and she's really insecure about it. And his very next line is like, of course I love you. I've been in love with you forever. But I don't tell people that. And that went super duper viral on TikTok. And some mean person, I'm a cusser, so if you hear me pause, it's because I'm editing those out. Someone replied to every single "what did he say next" comment with his quote, and nobody bought the book. Actually, that's not true. I made
Yeah.
$20 from a 200,000 view video.
Wow.
$20.
Because that
I've had,
Don't be
and
that
that
because somebody
person.
spoiled it for everyone.
well, and then I think now that sucks. I'm sorry, but that I think really demonstrates the effectiveness of the technique,
Yes.
because the only way you're going to get that satisfaction, unless some, I'll say it, asshole, shows up in your comments and spoils it for everybody. No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a ton
Yeah,
of sense.
I'm having a rage moment right now just thinking about that. Like, can we hunt them down? We can, can't we?
But it reminds me of those ads for video games where they're showing you. I don't know if you guys get these ads, but I do. It's just not a video game. It's like a mobile game, and it's showing you somebody playing the game, but they're doing it really poorly, and you get like, so like,
Of the king.
you're not doing it right. Like, do it the right way, and that it's a little different. But yeah, it creates that, and that's what makes you download the game and play it. And the same thing, the frustration of not knowing, like, or not getting that emotional satisfaction and understanding like
Mhm.
what's going to happen next means I have to read a book to find out what happens next. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. It makes a lot of sense. I think you've convinced me now that I need to just jump on TikTok. I'm being a I'm not trying to imply that I'm being facetious. I actually do think it would be worth a shot. I'm mainly
Thank
focused.
you for watching. Check out these other videos from BookFunnel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.